You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Good morning, Owasso. This is the Twins with Owasso Live, and this is the Morning Loop. So that's a little meme Chad put together, basically representing what's going on in California. I mean, I love that. I mean, that's exactly what the Democrats are doing. We did it. We saved the city. Our DEI hires saved the city. Gavin Newsom and what's her name, the mayor, taking credit for
Karen Bass
for basically destroying the city, their policies, their practices, their government bureaucracy and overregulation of not being able to fix a tarp that went over the the San Ann, or what was the Palisade Reserve. You know, it's like they should have taken a week, or they could have just bought a new one. But government bureaucracy, government overregulation, can't be done that way. Sorry, we have to do an environmental survey to see what we can do to fix and how we can do certain things, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's pathetic. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so today's title is DEI disaster. And of course it is a disaster. You know, I mean, a lot of stuff things are changing, thank God, now that Trump's in office. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I guess we have clips of that interview we'll show today, but Trump going in and basically just ridiculing, you know, Karen Bass, being like, we got to do. They want to make sure all the toxic chemicals and stuff are wasted. It's like, look, what are you talking about? Like, just let people go to their properties and start picking up stuff. But no, it's like, no, we have to. There has to be an environmental survey done to figure out what chemicals are in the area and stuff. It's just like, hey, again, another way to screw over people. Mm-hmm. Just, hey, you can't just go to your house and start cleaning up. You don't have a license for that.
Yeah, pretty much. So, like, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff to talk about. Like, this Karen Bass lady has a very shady past. And, yeah, I think if we want to go ahead and you just want to dive right into that, or we want to show some of the stuff?
Might as well. All right. Jump right in. So, Karen Bass she's a communist, right?
Yeah, she is a communist. She's a communist sympathizer, at least. But I'll go ahead and play this video. This guy breaks it down great.
Number 7, 1983. Remember this date, but first, let me introduce you to Karen Bass. Back in the 1970s, community activist Karen Bass went on at least 15 trips to Cuba, many with a group known as the Venceremos Brigade, a Marxist group started by the Castro regime to subvert American interests, weaken democracies, and spread communism around the world. Founded in 1969, the Venceremos Brigade organized trips to Cuba every year for half a century. They attracted the most radicalized and delusional segments of the American left, including overtly Maoist and pro-Soviet communist groups. In fact, a Los Angeles police investigator who infiltrated the group testified to Congress saying that to be a member of the brigade, you had to be confirmed as a Marxist-Leninist. As a brigadista and then moving up the ranks to organizer for the Venceremos Brigade, Karen Bass visited Cuba every 6 months. Their mission? To radicalize young, impressionable American leftists in terrorist tactics and guerrilla warfare. Members of the Venceremos Brigade were even taught how to make bombs.
Jesus Christ!
Karen Bass admits, on her many pilgrimages to Cuba, she went to see Fidel Castro speak several times, even calling him charismatic, and upon his death, praised him, saying, "The passing of Commandant en Jefe is a great loss to the people of Cuba, even though the people of Cuba see him as a dictator who impoverished their island." Another group, the M19, took its belief in revolutionary anti-imperialism to extremes, violent extremes. The M19 was the first and only women-created and women-led domestic terrorist group. Since their founding in 1978, M19's tactics escalated from robbing armored trucks and abetting prison breaks to building their own explosives and carrying out terrorist bombings. From 1983 to 1984, M19 bombed an FBI office, the Israel Aircraft Industries Building, the South African Consulate in New York, DC's Fort McNair, and Navy Yard, which they bombed twice. But that wasn't enough for them. On the night of November 7, 1983, the M19 called the US Capitol switchboard and warned them to evacuate the building. Minutes later, the M19 bombed the north wing of the US Capitol. November 7, 2023 marks 40 years since the M19's bombing of the US Capitol. Members of the M19, like Susan Rosenberg, traveled to Cuba with and were radicalized by the Vence Ramos Brigade. The South Los Angeles Vence Ramos Brigade was led by Karen Bass, who is now mayor of Los Angeles. November 7.
Holy cow. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the mayor of Los Angeles. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Now, just to also confirm that this is not just all pulled up in internet nonsense, here is an article from The Atlantic. When Karen Bass went to work in Castro's Cuba in 1973, Bass, who now a political Biden VP pick, a potential Biden VP pick, traveled to Cuba with the Vence Ramos Brigade. I didn't have any illusions that the people of Cuba had the same freedoms I did, she said. Karen Bass, the congressman for California, is in a contention to become Joe Biden's running mate. There are good reasons for this. She is reliably liberal. She chairs the Congress's Black Caucus, and she shares a history of family loss with Biden. But she also is the only person on Biden's list who spent their 1970s working construction in Fidel Castro's Cuba with the Vence Ramos Brigade, a group that has organized annual trips to Cuba for the young, leftist Americas for half a century. The Biden campaign knows about Bass's history with the brigade, which has began a joint venture with Castro government and Students for Democratic Society, the left anti-war organization that gave birth to the Weather Underground terrorist group. She told Biden's vetting committee weeks ago that this was probably going to come up. So far, it hasn't been a deal breaker. Good Lord. It wasn't a deal breaker. In fact, her potential to drive up African-American votes might help Florida among voters who traditionally haven't paid as much attention in the state. And that's it. Good Lord.
So, I mean, how can you not say the Democratic Party is full communist now? I mean, in order to join that brigade, she had to come out be confirmed as a Marxist-Leninist. But again, these words don't mean anything. Like, we aren't taught about Marxism in schools. I wasn't taught anything about Marxism. We were taught very minimally. Basically, they name drop Lenin and the communist ideology. But I mean, again, we weren't taught it was a bad thing. I remember when I was in high school, I remember my teacher goes, "It's not illegal to be a communist."
Actually, it is, according to the 1954,
Communist Espionage Act. Yeah. But again, it's absolutely insane. I mean, this is the Democratic Party. This is what they want. This has been the Democratic Party since the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's absolutely insane. I mean, and she's running the state. I mean, how did she get elected? I mean, we know how she got elected. I mean, again, the Democratic Party is full of communist sympathizers. They're full of Marxist-Leninists.
Yep. Check this out. This is a video Fox News also talking about these ties.
In the months that come forward.
Yeah. Do you want to share about the mayor? Listen, a lot of people have been talking about, who's to blame, whether it's Gavin Newsom or the mayor. A lot of people don't realize that Karen Bass is actually we talk about these left-wing policies. She has ties to communism. She was cutting sugarcane in Cuba. She's had 15 trips to Cuba, met with Fidel Castro. She is a solid communist. So don't be surprised that your policies make your city look like this when you put a communist and a communist sympathizer at the top of your of the heap as the mayor of Los Angeles. It's not surprising. They manage things. Look at how Cuba's managed, and now look at this.
Yeah, we're talking about, Fidel Castro and his top guy that everyone wears the T-shirts of, Che Guevara, who would kill and destroy as many people that it would take for them to implement their policies and their power and to maintain their power. That's essentially what Karen Bass has done with California. Is like, if I was the mayor of California and that happened under me, I would be like, I'm resigning. I would have the decency to be like, I'm going to help do whatever I can to get this town rebuilt, and I'm resigning.
And you made a point earlier when we were talking this morning, like she's the same mayor that was criticizing Ted Cruz for leaving his state whenever there was a winter storm that came through that knocked out all the power. You know what's absolutely insane is, like, what is Ted Cruz, a senator, going to do to stop a storm from blowing into his state? He had planned a vacation months in advance to go to, Cancun or something like that?
Yeah.
And they were like, Ted Cruz conveniently leaves the state in the winter storm. It's like, oh, yeah, because he just planned to leave when the storm blew in.
Well, that's also part of the thing. He's a senator. The only people who would be able to do anything about that would have been the governor. The senator votes on bills.
Yeah.
What does he do other than that for the state of Texas? Nothing.
Yeah, you know what's even worse, too, is this is when Beto was running against him. And, like, Beto was out there with a snow shovel. So I was like, Beto shoveled one driveway, and people were like, wow, what a relatable guy. Like, he's just so cool. I mean, what a useful dude. It's like, okay, would you rather have a senator who is going to shovel one random person's driveway, or would you rather have some senator who's going to, like, be in charge logistically and be like, hey, I'm going to put the people in place in order to get this thing taken care of? No. This is what Democrats are all about. It's all about PR. It's all about stupid TikTok and YouTube video viral stunts. It's
Never let a crisis go. Never let a good crisis go to waste is the Democratic motto.
Yeah. Give him, like, you know, Beto's never shoveled. I mean, Beto's rich. You know, he grew up rich, married rich, like, grew up in a band.
Here is that thing right there, and it's from Defiant L's. Karen Bass. This is from Karen Bass's Twitter. Ted Cruz fleeing Texas in the middle of a deadly crisis is part of a larger pattern of the GOP abandoning folks in a crisis. We need to build a movement and to kick all of them out. And then it says here, California Globe, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass heavily criticized for delay return from trip to Ghana with historic wildfires spreading. Bass didn't fly back until the wildfires began reaching historic destruction levels. Yeah, that's a definite big L right there, Karen Bass.
Again, thank you to Defiant L's for that. I mean, it's all about politics. It's all about just throwing the blame card against the other people. Again, double standards. If Democrats didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards.
Mm-hmm. And here's just a funny meme before I move on to the next one. Your neighborhood before DEI, your neighborhood after DEI.
I mean, that looks like Hiroshima or Nagasaki after the atom bomb got dropped off. You know, I mean, this is what you get with government bureaucracy, red tape, bad leaders, DEI hires, incompetent people placed in positions of power.
Oh, here we go. Here's the next one that I was going to pull up.
Madam Mayor.
Karen Bass gets confronted while she's on her way back. She won't even talk to the cameras.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Let me full screen this bad boy real quick. Go, multi-screen. Go.
Madam Mayor, David Blevins from Sky News in the UK. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Have you no response to that? Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
What is she standing in front of? Like a door to
They're unlocking a door to I think a private plane. She's going out to the tarmac right here.
Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Little button-up shirt.
Oh God! How embarrassing!
I know.
How
right?
embarrassing! That's enough of that. But I just thought that was really funny. And yeah, here she is. Like, talk about like the most epic like own of your life. Like, she calls out Ted Cruz again, who's a senator, has nothing to do with any of the state maintenance or anything that's going on in the state of Texas. That's the governor and whatever mayor of those towns that's happening at. And then you have her, who is the mayor of California,
Mayor
of
LA.
Los Angeles, while it's burning to the ground. Golly.
Yeah. Again, all about politics when it comes to throwing the blame. And again, she was like, I'm not going to, she even said in her campaign set, I'm not going to be leaving the state on the taxpayer's dime.
Yeah. And she was going to Ghana. Remember this. She was going to Ghana to see the first female, like, prime minister or president, whatever theirs is, to be elected. Of all the things to go do that you could just send a freaking tweet out.
Yeah.
And be like,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she left for while the city was burning. Golly. Then here she is, and Trump absolutely wrecks her at this little conference right here. This is what I've been seeing being talked about for the last couple of days now, is Trump has been making the rounds to North Carolina, the border, and to California.
And again, he was criticized by people in California for going to North Carolina first. The people of North Carolina have been suffering for significantly longer. And the conditions, the weather conditions, are significantly worse.
Yeah.
Like, look, if you live in
to-
California, sorry to say this, but you could pitch a tent on your front lawn that's burned down, and I got to be honest with you, 80 to 60 degree temperatures, not a bad thing to be camping out in.
Yeah.
But the people out in North Carolina, like, they're literally freezing in tents. Like, it's cold in North Carolina right now.
We don't feel as sorry for you sleeping outside
And
as
they've
we do
been-
the people in North Carolina.
And again, they've been suffering significantly longer. I mean, how long ago was the hurricane? Like, it was back in October, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
October. So there's still people camping out on their, probably not even on their homes. Like, they might not even be allowed to go back to their homes. That they're just camping out with tents and travel trailers or whatever they have, where they can.
Yep.
So, I mean, California, like, don't criticize Trump for not coming to you first. Like, the people in North Carolina, they've been suffering significantly longer.
Yes, they have. Well, let's check this video out. I love that he just wrecks her right here.
Take a look at that, actually.
Mr.
We'll
President.
Take a look. The mayor, please.
Yes. First of all, let me just take the opportunity to officially welcome you to Los Angeles. Really appreciate you coming, and especially you come just a few days after your inauguration. So
Thank you.
I want you to know that your presence here is very much appreciated. Let me also say that I know you had an opportunity to see the devastation. You've seen the extreme loss, the grief that people are going through here. And we are 100% committed to getting this neighborhood rebuilt again. You mentioned a couple of things in terms of us expediting. So I signed executive directives right away so that we could
Him
cut
and
the red
Melania
tape.
both completely
We could get people
unimpressed
back
and
building as fast as possible. And we're going to continue doing that.
Mayor,
We
the one thing is they
yes.
are saying they will not be allowed to start for 18 months.
No, that will not be the case.
Okay, I just hope
That
you're
will
right.
not, you can hold me to it.
Because 4 groups said that. and
No.
That would be, they should
No,
be able
that-
to do it. They should be able to start tonight.
That will not be the case. First we have to take care, to make sure that there's not getting rid of the hazardous waste, cleaning things up so that people can start right away. And just like you said, if somebody their house was destroyed and they're going to rebuild essentially the same, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit higher, they really shouldn't have to go through much of a process. So I want you to know that we are expediting that. We absolutely need your help. We need the federal help. You're a
You've got it,
builder.
I told you. You will have no permit problem. There will be 0 delay. And as far as I'm concerned, you already have the permits.
And the resource.
I am more worried because I met at least 8 groups of homeowners, and I'm much more worried about the fact that they said it's 18 months exactly, and they were devastated. They want to start now. They want to start removing things. They're not allowed to do it now. And you mentioned hazardous waste. Well, the hazardous waste. What's hazardous waste? I mean, you're going to have to define that. We're going to go through a whole series of questions on determining what's hazardous.
Nope.
I just think you have to allow the people to go on their site and start the process tonight.
And we will.
Okay, good.
You can come back and check.
Very
Mr. President?
Yes.
I mean, this is what happens when you have, like, a Giga Chad alpha male leader type like Trump just going, it's like, yeah, no, there's not going to be any red tape. Like, hazardous waste, like, define what hazardous waste is. I mean, according to probably people in California, hazardous waste could very well just be like, oh, they had Elmer's glue in their house, and when it burns, it's hazardous waste. Something like that. Something stupid. It's like, what hazardous waste chemicals do you keep in your house? You know what I mean? I know you can mix certain chemicals together and make mustard gas, but I mean, the house burnt down. All that stuff is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Get a shovel and start cleaning the crap out. So,
Yeah. And remember, like I said, the whole thing here is like, not only is it her, it's also Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom actually goes back and blames her in this video right here, like where they said that they catch Gavin Newsom in a lie right here. This is why I cannot stand these people.
Well, it's amazing how easily he can lie, how easily lying comes to him. It's like me and even little kids, it's like you can just see by the mannerisms, the way they speak. Like, this guy is such a seasoned liar that it just comes naturally to him. It's like he's lied so much he doesn't know what the truth is.
Yeah. 100%. But yeah, let's check this out. He literally lies to this reporter right to his face. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I called for him to come out, take a look for himself. We want to do it in the spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist. He's the president-elect. I respect the office. We have a president of the United States that within 36 hours provided a major disaster declaration over a text. We had support from the president of the United States, Joe Biden, with 100% reimbursement, all the resources you could hope for or imagine, constant communication. I'd like to extend that to the president-elect. I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month. I'm very familiar with them. Every elected official that he disagrees with, very familiar with them.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation, to understand what was happening with that local reservoir. That was not a state system reservoir, which the president-elect was referring to as it relates to the Delta and somehow connecting the Delta smelt to this fire, which is inexcusable.
If that reporter had not brought that up,
also
he wouldn't have mentioned it
to anyone that understands water policy.
You can tell by the way he was talking,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then just a lateral move. Oh, well, that wasn't a state.
Yeah, so basically right there, he blamed it on Karen Bass. So even if that's true, he goes, all mine, all the one that the governor's in charge of were filled. He literally just said, okay, well, it's Karen Bass's fault.
Mm-hmm.
She's the mayor of L.A.
Mm-hmm.
So one of these two is incompetent, or they both are.
I say they both are, man. I mean, Gavin Newsom's a weasel. I mean, again,
look at him. He looks like a used car salesman. As someone once said, he looks like Count Chocula. God, yeah, he just screams used car salesman. Like, there ain't nothing wrong with this car. Like, this car's only been in 15 accidents, and it had 15 previous owners, but it's good.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the state of California is being held together with duct tape. That's what's going on, right?
I would say Scotch tape at this point.
Scotch, yeah, they couldn't afford duct tape.
Golly, duct tape at least is a little bit reliable.
Yeah, they use it on airplanes, so it's good.
Golly. But yeah, then that's really pretty much like all I've got. Like I said, then right here, 313 LA firefighters removed from duty without pay for failing to meet city's vaccine mandate. There are not enough firefighters, according to LA Fire Department chief.
Well, I mean, I guess you could do what Trump did with the soldiers. You could just reinstate them and give them back pay.
Mm-hmm.
I know California is basically bankrupt, so, it's just more money coming out of the taxpayers' pocket, but sheesh.
Then I think this is just a little bit of like gravy. This is the only good news that has come out of these fires as tragedy strikes twice for BLM founder Patrice Collier. She doesn't deserve to have her name said properly.
That's true.
As 2 of her 3 Los Angeles mansions are consumed by the wildfire.
So we can only just hope that they weren't insured, too.
Yeah. Hopefully she was one of the ones that got their insurance, canceled.
Yeah.
Before, or I should say not canceled, non-renewed, because that's basically what all the insurance companies are like. We can't afford to stay in this state because of California's crazy insurance regulations.
The worst thing that could happen is she gets paid out on this deal. Because she's really not a loser if that's the case then. It's like, I'll just build a new mansion, a better one.
Yeah. No kidding. But that's really all I've got. Like, I mean, I was going to end it on one of these two videos. It's either the one that we just watched or this one right here. It's another one where her and Trump kind of get into it again.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, that's about all I've got for you. So, well, that was our deep dive into Karen Bass and the continuation on the California wildfires. And again, it's all politics right now. You know, you really can't. It's government incompetence is what happened, is what's caused these wildfires, appointing people into positions they don't deserve to be in. I mean, how many people do you think are more qualified than those lesbians that were appointed to those positions, or the trans people who were appointed to those positions to rule over competent firefighters who've been doing that job for years? You know, you can tell a lot by, I guess, the state of a state if you look at who's appointed to the positions of power. And, you know, you can tell when people surround themselves with unqualified folks, and they're not going to make waves for the person who's the big boss, the person who's in charge, you know. You want somebody who's willing to come in and be like, I'm going to tell you the truth, this is not working. And then if the person who's in charge, like the mayor, goes, all right, well, I guess we got to make a change.
I mean, it's the exact same logic that we apply to, like you said, business. You can tell a good business from a bad business by how many people you have to talk to get something taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with government. If there's not just somebody you can go to that you don't know who to go to get your problem solved, the government's being run pretty piss poor.
Yeah. I want to talk to one person and my problem is solved. That's the way it should be with any business. But again,
I mean, at least one lateral movement should be as far as you go. Oh, I know who you need to talk to.
Yeah.
So
I've got the department's phone number for you.
Exactly. And one lateral movement. Now, they could argue that. It needs to be one lateral movement. If the person you're talking to can't do it, it should be one lateral movement, and that's it.
Yep.
But that's not how it is.
No, especially not with government bureaucracy and red tape. I mean, again, could you imagine not being able to rebuild your home for 18 months? It's like, sorry, we have to do all the environmental surveys, all the environmental studies. We have to make sure we have to do an environmental study on how the roly-polies are going to be affected before you start to lay the first brick of your house.
Well, that's even part of it. Like I think that's in this one right here. They talk about how they're going to have a building. Like they're going to be able to come into that building the day of. Everybody has to come to that building and go. So you're going to have everybody in Los Angeles who's lost their home come to this one building to get approved to do all these things. That sounds like the DMV, and it sounds awful. So you're going to have a line of people like how it is for us to how it was
go
for
to
us
the
to vote.
DMV?
Yeah. You're going to be sitting there waiting for everyone in front of you to get approval. So you're going to be there for hours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing as like whenever the Amish went to North Carolina to rebuild people's houses, and the government was like, sorry, these aren't, you're not licensed or contracted to be able to build houses. It's like, do you think the people, I mean, they're just temporary houses too. They're just houses for people to live in and put their feet up while their real homes are being rebuilt. So you're going to tell these people, the Amish, we just built these houses. We're the Amish. We've been building houses like this for centuries and generations. It's like, we get it. We know how to do it. We know what we're doing. And the government's going to sorry, you're not licensed contractors. We can't trust your work.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you seen that? I mean, I've heard so many stories about people who work for government officials or whatever, and they hire somebody to do something, and then they get told, we have to redo all this because this wasn't government approved. And they come in there, somebody comes in and does the job, and it does a worse job for more money.
Yeah. You know, why don't you pull up that government inefficiency one, the one I sent you about that lady, and that's how we can end the show.
Oh, yeah? I can try to
because,
find
like, I mean, we've beaten this Karen Bass thing to death.
You're right. Let me see what I can find.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, the way we'll end the show today is we're pulling. I sent Chad a video today or yesterday of a lady basically saying, do not feel bad for the government employees who are A, getting fired, or B, being forced to go back into the office to work. Because she basically confirms the 80.
This one?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
The 80-20 rule. The 80-20 will bring, like, basically 80% of the people you could fire and get rid of because only 20% of the people are doing actually any of the work in the government. And the people who do good work in the government are punished for doing good because, you know, they're making everybody else look bad. So people file complaints against people who actually do good work.
Yeah.
It's very similar in the military, too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got it set up and ready to go if you're ready.
Yeah, whenever you're ready. But yeah, so this is the Twins with Owasso Live. This was the Morning Loop. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you too can stay in the loop. That is all we've got for you today. God bless you.
See you later, everybody.
I used to be a federal employee, and I'm going to tell you why I don't feel bad for federal employees being forced to come back into the workplace. I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers for almost a year, and the abuses that I saw by government employees was astounding and shocking. I worked as a realty specialist, and that is someone who manages government-owned lands. So when farmers and ranchers lease land to graze cattle, we would manage that. When I was hired, my boss bragged that it was basically impossible to get fired from the federal government, and that in her entire time working for the government, she'd only seen one person fired, and that person assaulted a fellow employee, and she wasn't even fired for assaulting the employee at work. She was fired for lying about it because they caught it on camera. When I worked for the government, we were allowed to work 50% in the office and 50% from home, for the most part. In some cases, if you worked there, like I think over 10 years or something, you could actually work from home 3 days a week and work from the office 2 days a week. I use the word work very loosely. One employee spent his time remote working, running his own farm. Another employee bragged about drunk driving and going out to lunch with her friends for margaritas when she was supposed to be remote working. No one would log into their computers, and you can see it because they're not on Teams, and no one ever checked. Ever. There's something called the 80-20 rule where 80% of the work in government is done by 20% of the people, and this is very, very true. People who get a job in the government a lot of times find out that it's very difficult to fire them, and they take advantage of this. One employee would come into the office, his start time would be 6:30, and he knew nobody would be there. And when I came in at 7:30 and I was the next person to come in, he was snoring at his desk every single morning. Another employee would take the government truck on an almost daily basis so that he could go out to lunch and then go and take a nap in his favorite park under a shady tree in the government truck. One of the very first things I did when I started working for the Corps, I spent 3 months cleaning up their real estate files room, which was a disaster. The government is using an antiquated system that was developed sometime in the 90s and using regulations that haven't been updated since the 90s to manage our dams and our government lands. Our government is filled with the most incompetent and most lazy people and an occasional hard worker. And those hard workers are severely punished every time they outwork their colleagues, because then the colleagues realize people will see that they're lazy and they don't want to have to work more. They're just buying time until they retire, in almost every case. My point is, some of our government organizations haven't been maintained or updated in so long that you basically need to create a new organization and start from scratch, because there's almost no way to transfer it over. And there's so much red tape in between, it'll never get done. But I know that our government is inefficient because the people working for it are not doing what they need to do to take care of the rest of us. So no, I don't think government employees should get the benefit of working from home. If our government is not working for us, we shouldn't have to take years to do anything in a technological age. They choose to take that long. That's a choice. So they can choose to do things faster and more efficiently, and then they can choose to get remote work back. I don't feel bad for them at all. I used to be a federal employee.